All right, week 10 already, April. NET-136, OS2, and this is Friday. So I'm going to do the whiteboard review right away today because some people were gone to the cyber defense competition and so forth. All right, so we talked about users today, groups, and permissions. Okay, users you should have already covered in the curriculum. We're talking about being at root. Later on, we'll talk about assigning things using Sudo. We're talking about adding, identifying, and then we talked about password permissions. What we're working on now for next week is starting a script to do this work. So we start out users. I talked briefly about the skeleton directory. You can build out all the things you want to have in the users directory here. We're not doing it that way right now, but that would be an option for you to do. What we're going to do is we're going to build the users individually. So we did a user add, and we did the password, and we also changed that information, the personal information. And where that would be the human ID in the file. So when you look at the password file, you have a username, password field, which is just an X. The password is actually in the shadow file. You have a user ID, a group ID, a human ID. It lists the home directory and what shell you're using. Ours is the bash shell. So we're going to keep moving here. So I just wanted to emphasize a couple things. The shadow file actually holds a password. We're going to look at that here in a minute. We use user add, but you could also add user as an alias that actually takes you to this. All right. And if you look at the password file, which is in the etc directory, you'll see all of these items. Okay? And what we're going to talk about a little bit are password permissions. The shadow file is where it has a username, has the encrypted password, and then it has this information concerning passwords. So let's just briefly talk about that. Days since change from January 1, 1970. Okay? So it'll be a number listing how many days it's been changed. We do nothing with that information there. But what we can do is we can adjust this. Days before it can be changed, you could list how many days, once somebody changes it, they can't change it for this many more days. We can adjust days after which a password must be changed. So you can say when they change a password, then within, let's say, 30 days, they'd have to change the password again. Days warning before the password expires. Okay, so they're going to warn you, it's preset, I believe, to 7 days. And then the days after it expires that the account is disabled. And we're going to look at examples of that next week. This last field not used. All right. So as we move along, we're going to look at some more examples. We did not use this. What we did use, we're going to move into groups now. What we did use is we added a group. You can delete a group. You can change new group, directory, or file. You can adjust the group, directory, or file. Okay. Okay. Right now I am getting the power hooked up because I was low on power. So Just hang in there. In less than a minute or two, we'll get back to the actual material. Thanks. All right. Got a little pause in there. I'll try to take that out later. So, I had to plug in the cord for the battery. So where are we at? Okay, where we're talking about groups up here. We're not using that, but what we did use, you can modify the user to move them around in groups. And when you add users, you can put what group you want them in. We didn't actually mention these, but the last would show you, everybody when they last logged in and who's currently logged in. The last B would show you, I believe it's B, the ones that failed logins. Virtual machines. So this will be what you want to do in your virtual machine. You're going to create users, set up a public HTML directory. We'll add a little more to that later. Password plan, the permissions that we just showed over there. Some kind of a group plan. You're going to put the user in a specific group when you add the users up here. And then we want to write that all in a script. Outside of the script, you'll create your groups ahead of time and you'll set up a directory for only group access. And we should be working on chapters 15 and 16. A couple other items. We'll highlight a few items here. Add a user, change your password. And then here you can change the information for a user. You'll notice some of this information was already changed. I already had Chad in, PC29, the office, my phone number as the office number, and then I made up this phone. Okay? And so if you want to change it, you could just type the new information in, and that's what I did here. This is actually new information. Information changed. Then I looked at the file, and here is that information. So earlier I mentioned the information ID. We have the user ID, group ID, name, where the password used to be. Now that's in the shadow file. Home directory, and the shell. Then we went in and we adjusted the password. Down here are those items concerning adjusting the password. And then I went in and we looked at the shadow file, and you can see those things have been adjusted in terms of the password. Minimum days, maximum days, so you got to change it in 5 days. 2 days of warning, and then 4 days of what I would call grace before it becomes inactive. So here you can see some of the actual commands that we used in the class. I got one more page to talk about. So, add a group, delete a group. We didn't actually delete any in class, but those are the commands, and then you actually have the name behind there. Then here we actually took a look at the group file for operators, and then you can see, I'll do this in another color. Here's what it displayed. So we already had put Chad and Jacob in that group. Then I did add a users, the A is append, to operators, Dirksen M. And now in operators are these 3 people. So we have these 3 people are in that group, operators. Now, I did this one. Modify the user, group, class A Chad, and then look at here. What it did is it took Chad out of this group and put him in this group. Here, when I say append, it left Chad here and added him to this group. And then down here, I use this command, and that, for this directory, I made the operators the group. Then we did some work. Okay, we actually then took people logged in as either Chad or Jacob, and then they managed some files in this directory. And they could because they belonged to the group, and that group had complete rights over the directory. I don't know if you saw that over here. The group rights, complete rights over the directory. And that's it for today.